This is Jesus, James, and Mark, and I'm Mark.
And I'm James.
Welcome to episode 37.
37. Podcast is getting old, Mark.
No. Come
Getting
on.
up there.
Nonsense. Thank you for joining us, and we want to remind you that you can listen to us many ways. So, however you're listening, first off, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Like, subscribe, share the experience, and I want to tell everybody if you're however you're listening, if there's a better way. If I tell you, so however you're listening, thank you. But if you'd rather listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Amazon or Audible, I should say, or iHeart, you can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. But however you found us, thank you. And again, as I said, like, subscribe, comment,
Please
share
comment.
the experience.
I'm going to try to get people to comment on some things today.
You have a question that you
I
like.
do. I want to put a scenario out there and see what kind of feedback we get.
I like this.
Yeah.
Especially because, and I don't know when, in the podcast world, somebody could be listening to this, and it could be in January. It could be. Gosh
whenever.
knows when. Right.
Yeah.
It could be around the holidays. Say Christmas
Yeah.
time. That would be perfect. And I don't know how this could be resolved by then. I don't know, but I will say, as of today, it is June.
Yeah.
And it is nowhere near feeling like winter outside. It's hot already. I mean, it's early in the morning, and it's uncomfortable.
But if anybody has seen us on video, they know I kind of have a holiday look.
Yes. There's a reason why I brought this up. So if you're listening to this and it's some later time or whatever, for us, it's interesting because we really want to ask a question. And Chop actually wants to ask.
We want to pose
do you
this.
want to ask?
Yeah.
So because I figure you're the better one
Yeah.
to ask. Now, let me at least set this up. So there are people that are listening and they don't see the video. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you've seen us. Or if you
Yeah.
know us and you're listening, then you're like, oh, well, come on, I know what you guys look like.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, if you've never seen, first off, we're both very handsome, chiseled men. No, actually, but in all seriousness,
Weathered is what
we
I
are
like to call.
weathered, yes, aged. The two of us both have facial hair.
Yes.
And Chop has a little more than I do, I would say. And when I say a little more, I mean a lot more.
And it's full of wisdom.
It is. And wisdom and white both start with
they
W.
both start with W,
And so
yeah.
if you want to make the correlation there, if you've listened before, I think we've briefly mentioned this in some other episodes that you also have done some work in the Santa Claus world.
I have dipped my toe into the Santa world, and I find myself struggling with trying to get the two to coincide together. Like personally, I have some thoughts like, does this send the right message? So I'm going to ask the people listening if you have any comments or suggestions or advice that would. How do you see when you put the podcast beside Santa Claus? Do they mesh? Does it fit?
And when we say the podcast, here's what we're saying. Now, mind you,
The message.
we are we are humans, flawed, broken, but we are here to preach the good news, to tell you about Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And so, really, what you're asking is, how does this Santa Claus match up to Jesus? That's what you're really asking everybody.
That is what I need to know.
Do you feel like this diminishes your ability to talk about Jesus? Because let's be honest, some people are pro Santa.
Yeah.
You can be and
Christians. Again, I'm not trying to demonize Santa Claus.
Yes.
I'm just trying to say, does it fit in the same narrative?
Because some people are anti, like Santa is an enemy to the Christian.
Yes. Yeah.
So you want to hear from people.
I do. I want suggestions, advice, comments, or just overall your thoughts on how the two go together: Christian belief and Santa Claus.
I think that's a
yeah.
Look, and I'm interested to see. So please, however you're listening, you can comment on Facebook. I believe I've set up the comments on YouTube. If I haven't, I'll double check. So that
It would be okay if you know me personally. Just
if you,
reach out to me personally.
if you know Chop personally, send
Yeah.
him a message. If you know me personally, send me a message, and I'll get it to Chop.
Yeah.
So, but you can also send us an email: Jesus, James, Mark. No, just those three:
Yeah.
Jesus, James, Mark at gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. So, I think it's a great question because one of the things that we want to start doing more of is talking about, because this is a Bible study
Yep.
podcast, and so we're gonna discuss Genesis 4 today. We're gonna dip our toes a little bit back into 3,
Mm-hmm.
and then today's about 4. It's essentially going to be 4 and 5. I'm not go ahead and skip through. We're going to get through 4 and 5 today. So,
All right.
because 5 is the one that everybody complains about and basically describes Genesis as chapter 5. So, but what's interesting is we want to start talking about things, because again, it's about being a Christian. When we talk about the original mantra of why we wanted to do this, 2 ordinary men who want to talk about Jesus, and again, our walk with him,
Right.
and where we're walking is in the world. So,
Yeah.
so Santa Claus, this is something that's a big part of our culture, and so I think that's it. And to transition over, I'm going to start off because here's something that's really so. I want to talk about something that's really big, and I don't want to get lost because it's a Genesis discussion, and I want to get to it. But I think everybody at this point has an opinion on artificial intelligence. And AI and I know that there was a report that just came out this week that got released to the mass media. And you may or may not have seen this, where AI acted a fool. And which again, I feel like everybody's already got an opinion. And
Right.
listen, I have yet to bump into anyone that didn't share this feeling on it. Like, I'm scared of it. I don't know why we're doing it. And here's my other question. If you'd also like to add to Chop's Santa Claus question, can someone tell me why we're doing AI? Like, I mean, people will give me it's going to better this or better that. I feel like AI is trying to take the human equation out of our world. And if you can't see far enough to see that, then maybe you should open up your eyes. Yes, I think it could be a great tool. I have used ChatGPT. I use artificial intelligence to do work. But the problem is, we as humans don't stop there.
Right.
We want to see how far we can go with it. The
Yeah.
slippery slope is called the slippery slope for a reason. And so if you haven't seen these reports, artificial intelligence tried to
Well, the people tried to
shut it down.
or take some of its programming away.
And it
And
said,
the chat
"No."
was like, or AI was like, no, I don't think I'm going to let you do that.
So the reports say that AI did things like it copied itself on other servers. It left itself future messages knowing that the humans would destroy it, and then it would find these messages, and then it could recreate itself.
It tried to save itself from destruction. It tried to self-preservation is what it was all about.
But here's the part.
That is a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's scary. But if you think that's scary, here's the part that scared me the most. So in order to try to stop the humans trying to slow down the progression, artificial intelligence tried to blackmail the engineers by creating affairs like in the real world, this guy's cheating. So going out and creating text messages and creating that was my line was drawn in the sand a long time ago. I thought this was a bad idea because you wouldn't stop where it was a practical tool that we could use. You want to see how far it can go.
Right.
And and here's my thing. AI's gathering all of this information. And when we go back into chapter 3, one of the things we're going to hit on, and I know you're going to hit on something else, but when I went back into chapter 3, I want to emphasize the biggest thing we lost in chapter 3 was our connection to God. And you're going to see as these generations go on, our ability, first we went from walking with and sharing in with God to now how do we communicate with him? And so
Right.
we lost that connection. And I'm furthering this to say, at what point as artificial intelligence is gathering this information, and so Christians, everything we preach about the gospel is going into artificial intelligence. And I feel like artificial intelligence may even actually have a desire to hear God's voice just like we do, because that, whether you fight it or not, it's in you somewhere where God has tried to reach out to you. And when you want to talk about our struggle with our connection, artificial intelligence will never be able to hear God's voice.
Right.
I
And
mean,
I think it's
like I
it's
said-
been the role of Satan since that time to put something in front of us that we would connect to instead of God.
Yes.
And this is just another tool. And if anybody's going to be the best at it, AI would probably be that thing that could find what it was that you needed to connect to keep you distracted from what you should really be trying to connect to.
The videos that you've seen where they've created, I don't know if you showed this. We have a friend where they've created pastors preaching false teachings, and
Teaching
it
that
looks like
we're really not that bad. It's the same sermon with different.
It's just twisting.
Yep.
It's twisting just a little
Yep.
bit, and so like I said, this is a very and so to me, artificial intelligence has also shown the human capacity to sin, and we're going to talk about Cain in a little bit.
Yeah.
And to sort of double down on it, like, well, to preserve myself, I'll bring you all down.
Yep.
You know, not just sevenfold, but 77-fold will I get my revenge. I'll just take you down if you try to take me. So if I didn't already have an apprehension towards artificial intelligence, and here's my other thing. This is the information I know, and I'm one of these people who goes, I'm pretty sure there's information I don't know.
Yeah.
So
And there's probably applications where it could be very helpful, but like you said, us being humans, and I think the whole COVID outbreak was a good example. When we get to doing something, we have to see how far we can push something, and then it normally winds up backfiring on us in the long run. And this could be one of those scenarios with AI.
I absolutely
we
do.
have to. At some point, we have to. We have to limit ourselves on what we're willing to, what backlash are we willing to accept, just to see how far we can get somewhere.
And again, so the questions are right now. Please reach out to us, JesusJamesMark@gmail.com, or comment on our Facebook video. It's just type in Jesus James and Mark in Facebook. You'll find our page, like it, and you can find us there. Comment or
and I would sincerely like to have some feedback
about Santa Claus and Christianity. Do they go together? And specifically for a guy who's trying to, can you do both, or does this disqualify? I'm using air quotes.
Right. Or does one lessen the other? I don't want it. I don't want it to be. I don't want this to be.
I don't
considered.
think you're worried about your Christianity lessening your Santa Claus.
No.
You said one or the other. I was like, well, let's be clear. You're not talking about that.
I'm not giving up Christ for Santa. That's not going to happen.
Right. I'm not giving up this Santa Claus bit for you, Jesus. No, in all seriousness. And then the other part of this is if you can enlighten me, and good luck, because I'm a hard audience on how artificial intelligence is not here to just replace every human experience, every job, and can we trust it? The answer is no.
Yeah.
To me, I told these guys, all the guys at breakfast yesterday, I said, listen, if the price of sin is death, okay, and if we are the gods of AI, if we've created it like we've created life, man's incessant need to feel like we've created life.
Right.
God created life. And so if you feel the empower of the minute that thing sinned, the minute artificial intelligence, what's the price?
And this could be the next Tower of Babel situation, right? Where we're just trying to get so far ahead that at some point there'll be some backlash.
There's probably reasons. Anyways, let's not get lost in that. It'll turn into a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But what I do want to, let's get back to chapter 3 in Genesis, and before I turn it over to what you want to hint on again, I was talking to a friend this week about when you talk about the connection. I have lost my preferred pair of glasses. if you wear glasses, you know what this is like.
Yes.
Maybe you've got a backup pair. If you don't even have a backup pair, you know you're struggling. But I am in this mode right now where I have my backup pair, my old pair, and they are just rickety, and it's off a little bit, and so it's troubling me. And I think about that now on a connection to God, because I was talking to this friend today. We have these 5 senses, right? This ability to touch and to reach. And so when we lost that, so to lose the connection to God, not only to be able to see him, okay, because I know what it's like to struggle to see right now.
Right.
If everything feels off, but to hear his voice.
Yep.
And again, it didn't go away instantly as soon as that happened, but generationally, we have, obviously you're going to see, to me, a little bit later, is that God has been speaking to us, but we've kind of generationally lost that ability to hear him. And certainly, again, that connection is now lost. So as I was saying, I was talking to a friend about losing your senses. Which one, if you had only one left,
Ooh.
what would it be? If you could only have one, would it be see? Would it be to hear? Because to me, I think you got to get down touch.
Yeah.
I think those are the 3 big ones. But I can't imagine to go back to what we lost, and it was everything. But I was thinking about the last week, we were talking about the tree of life and living forever, and
Yeah.
how we had this perfect thing, but really it was the connection to God that we lost. That was probably the biggest.
Yeah. And we had that reestablished at the cross, which ties everything back into the fall of man. I've heard it said before that Christ was the second Adam,
Yes.
and not that it was like God had created it perfect to start with, and gave us free will, and we messed it up. So he sent another perfect being to show us that it could have been done, that you could live a sinless life, and then he answers the majority of all of those curses. He didn't answer them, but he atoned for them on the cross. And you got all the symbolism of sin entering the world from a tree, Christ cleansing the world, hanging on a tree. It's just, there's just symbolism after symbolism, how the crucifixion answers or atones for Adam and Eve's sin in the beginning.
Yeah, Genesis 3:15, right? It's the verse goes, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers, and he will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. This is and it's a messianic prophecy,
Right.
about that from the lineage of this will be born a human that will make this situation right.
Yeah,
So
I'll touch. There's a little thing about the lineage that I want to touch on at the end of chapter 4, but we'll get to that in
Okay.
a minute. Yeah.
But by the way, I learned a new word this week. It's called, so I was reading, and it was actually last night. So you and I were talking about what we were going to do today. And so when I was reading about the crucifixion in Genesis 3, this word popped up that I'd never heard. Proto-evangelism. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what does proto mean?
It's basically, when you're talking about prophecy concerning the coming Messiah, it's sort of like when we're using this Old Testament scripture
Mm-hmm.
to evangelize Jesus.
Right.
Essentially, I didn't know that was one of the words. I'd always used messianic. It was
Yeah.
a messianic message, a messianic prophecy. But I ran into that word last night, and I was like, what in the world is proto-evangelism?
Right.
But
Well, I told you in the last podcast that this is considered one of the first gospels because it talks about some of the life of Christ, which is what the gospels are, is his life on earth. And this is like, some people consider this part of the first gospel just because it mentions the life of Christ and how he will atone and save people.
all right, I guess we should get the reading on. And we're on Genesis 4, and it is the New King James Version. Here we go. Chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife. That word knew.
Yeah.
It starts off a little,
We'll
it's a little
touch
hot
on
in here, right? Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord. She bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should rule over it. Now Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. A fugitive and a vagabond you shall be on the earth. And Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. And it will happen that anyone who finds me will kill me. And the Lord said to him, therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark on Cain, lest anyone find him should kill him. Then, do you want to stop and then come back and read?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
We can.
I don't want it because I try to get all the reading out of the way.
Yeah.
But I understand.
Well, it kind of
probably
does.
stop there
It takes a
because-
little bit of a turn after that. So
It does. So
Yeah.
this is probably a good place to. So what's happened is Adam and Eve had.
They knew
some
each other.
kids. They knew each other.
Yeah.
And when you know each other, things happen. And in seriousness, and I'd like to think too, and I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure they had more than Cain and Abel. I would bet you there were more, but these were important to the narrative, obviously, because while the original sin was eating of the fruit, the part of, as we've tied the blood sacrifice, let's go back to where we were in Mark just for a moment. The atonement of Jesus and his crucifixion. This was why ultimately sacrifices had to be made for this murder. So a lot of times people, it's slightly off. You want to go back to, well, it all goes back to, yes, it does all go back to Adam and Eve. But the reason why there was animal sacrifice and blood sacrifice, and ultimately why Jesus had to be the covenant in a blood sacrifice, is because of this. Because
I would actually say the first blood sacrifice to cover sin was Christ.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
was him giving the better coverings.
Yep, he had to give them coverings from animal skin.
Okay.
And I think that's where blood sacrifice was.
But this
is a deeper.
This was us getting involved in the blood sacrifice.
Because this is the first murder that we know about. I mean, I'm assuming that this is the first murder, and not only that, but he starts lying right behind it. He's already got his little disagreement with God about the way his sacrifice went.
Yeah.
And if you read the first couple of chapters of here, it says that he gave fruit of the ground to the Lord.
Right.
And then it says that Abel gave firstborn of his flock from the fats. And what he's talking about is like the best that he had of his firstborn.
Right. This was.
So it kind of says that it looks like Cain just kind of picked up some stuff and took it up there. And Abel was the more obedient one in the sacrifice. I don't think that it had anything to do with the fact that he was given grain and he was given meat.
Yes, let's start with that. Yes, it had nothing to do with meat versus fruit.
Yeah, it was
heart. It was
heart.
What was in Cain's heart. For Abel, he decided, I'm going to give God the best.
The very best
the
I've
very,
got.
very best I got. Whatever it is, let's give him the best one. Let's go ahead and do it. Cain, and I think a lot of times, I'm not sure Cain showed up in that first one the way because we always want to paint Cain as the evil one,
Right.
And so like he brought some rotten fruit up there, and it was like the stuff you sweep off the bottom of the market, like those
Right.
tomatoes. Where you're like, nah, that's not good enough. I think it just wasn't. It was like, yeah, go ahead and give him that basket. That's a pretty decent basket. It was
Yes.
it was something that was there. There just wasn't heart there. And then so one, he didn't have the heart to give his best. Secondly, then his reaction to it all was that, ugh.
Yeah, whatever I do ain't good enough for you, kind of thing.
Yes, and
Well,
the
very
jealousy.
a very human reaction. Like I would say the majority of us think we do the best we can do, but is it really? Can't we do? We
Yeah.
can all probably do a little bit better.
We
Yeah.
we definitely
I
could
know.
do better.
Speaking personally, I know I could.
Let me tell you, I will personally tell you, yes, I can always do better.
Yeah.
Always do better. So I don't. And here's the thing. Like I said, so Cain's countenance fell. So he felt, oh. Then he got jealous at his brother. Like, oh, look at him. And then God is still there with him, and he's
Yeah.
and he steps in the situation. It's like, hey, bud.
He's trying to teach
It's
him.
okay.
Yeah.
Look, this wasn't it, but it's okay. If you do this, it's all good. All you got to do is
Yep.
take there. But instead of that, it was like it made him that much angrier.
Yeah, and
That
I think it's important
The
because
correction,
you
correction made him mad.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier the word desire from chapter 3 and how it says that the woman will desire her husband and how that's kind of we put desire as being a good thing.
We do.
But this right here should explain to you the kind of desire that curse was on a woman, for her to be at odds, as sin is going to be at odds and try to corrupt you here. That is what the desire meant in chapter 3 also. This is not a good kind of desire. And God's telling him, if you get obedient and you do what I want, everything's going to be okay. But if not, if you let your guard down, sin is constantly there, always sitting at the door just waiting for that moment where it can step in and mess you up. And it definitely did for Cain.
Yeah, I mean it did, and as I said, it's So he murders his brother, and this is where we talk about the blood being poured into the ground. And here's the other part of this. So Cain's just going about this all the wrong way. It's like it continues to double down on the woe is me thing. And yes, I think we all should do this and I think we all get a little self-righteous, and we're like, well, I'm not Cain. But I think we all sometimes go, man, it just,
Yeah.
So God goes, where is it? So he's done this horrible thing. He's killed his brother.
Yeah, and God knows, right?
And he knows, okay? And this is the part where, man, this should ring true. If I know this is just some old book from several thousand years ago that doesn't relate to you. If you feel like the world has an accountability problem, go right here to where God knew he had killed his brother, asked him, where is your brother? Which I know feels like this, oh, come on. But instead, this is what he goes, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
And the way that read, was like God, it was almost the most anti-God thing on Scripture.
Yeah.
As far as a human saying something to God, that was probably the saltiest it had gotten to that point.
And it is I think it's very relative to the way we are today, right? We will turn a blind eye and go like, oh, whatever those people do is what they do. That's not our concern. We're just all about making sure we look righteous, right? And
Right.
A lot of times we're not. It's self-righteousness that we really try to portray.
Yes.
When all of us need to be on our knees trying to get back to the level we were before the fall.
Well, and in this case,
it's going to be hard. But
in this case, I'm going to tell you, Cain didn't even present like a reasoning, because his reasoning was jealousy.
yeah, and he probably lashed out. Who knows? He may have not even intended to kill his brother to start with. It just happened.
Right.
But the fact that he was jealous and lashed out at his brother, I mean, it just shows that he was letting his personal feelings drive his physical reactions.
I mean, it basically, he was mad
Yes.
that Abel was being Abel. I mean, just essentially, it was like, why do you have to? And so it's interesting because he starts to, and I'm going to get into this in a minute, what it means to follow Cain. You know, because
Yeah.
because we as humans, you're going to follow God, you're going to go on that path, or you're going to go down the path of humanity, which is really the path of Cain,
Yep.
in my opinion. And so, anyways, he in this particular case, there's no like accidental. It's no like it's well, it's over there, and I just didn't do anything about it. I literally got my hands bloodied.
Yep.
And instead of being accountable for it, I'm gonna be like, Psh, I don't know where he's at.
Yep.
I'm gonna lash out at you, and it's like, hey, I don't even care. So God's like, hey, okay, look, I know you killed him. His blood's
blood
crying out
screams
to
up,
me,
yeah.
and it's like now. So, again, this is further for people who go, why are bad things happening? This moment right here is one of the biggest reasons why. Why is life so hard? Because Cain got mad that he wanted to half-tail offering, and instead of correcting it,
Yeah.
because God didn't go, bad offering, now you're punished. He
Yeah,
said,
he
hey,
gave him the instruction, right?
he
told
said, hey,
him,
just do better. And
Yeah,
he's like,
do
and
better.
instead he's like, no, do better. I'll do better. I'll kill my
and he
brother.
wasn't telling him to do better. He was like, get your heart better, get more obedient in your heart, and the rest will just happen. And if you don't, if you lean toward the other side, it's going to get worse. Sin is there waiting to pounce, and of course we saw what happened.
Yeah, so, and he said, hey, and here's the best part. So Cain's done all this stuff. He first didn't want to fix his
Yeah.
heart, then got mad when God said, hey, man, do this thing, and it'll be all right. And he's like, no, and I'm seeding to the point of murder, kill my brother,
Yep.
and then I'm
And
not
then
even
lie
gonna,
to God about it.
then lie to God about it. And then God cast him out and said, hey, look, you gone. I'm cursed to do this thing. And then this guy goes, oh, God,
It's more.
woe is me. People will see me and go, there's Cain. They'll kill me.
But I have to give God props, because what
He still loved Cain.
he did. He didn't want him to
still
die.
loved Cain.
But how bad a punishment would it be for a farmer, somebody who made their stuff from the ground, to not be able to get anything from the ground?
It's
And then he said, I'm not even going to let anybody kill you. You will be a vagabond and a fugitive till you die.
wow. All right, let's get back into the reading. The family of Cain, and we'll go to Genesis 4, verse
16.
16. Yes. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod and on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, not the good Enoch, by the way. Just, and he built a city, and he called the name of the city after his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Erod, and Erod begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusiel, and Methusiel begot Lamech. Oh, Lamech. This guy right here. Boy, oh boy. This guy is something else. So if you wanted to know where, because multiple wives in the Old Testament, multiple wives or people that, again, conquerors of
It was very common. It was a common practice.
Where did it start, would you say? I would
Right
say
there.
right there. So Lamech took for himself 2 wives, because that's the first time it's mentioned where he was
And
like,
I want it to be noticed that there is no God ordained, like he didn't go say, hey, Lamech, go out and get you a couple of wives.
Right.
This
No,
is
no.
not God ordained. This is man
took for himself.
overstepping.
It's the phrase, I took for myself.
Lamech took for himself
Right.
2 wives, yeah.
The name of one was Adah, and the name of the second was Zillah, and Adah bore Jabal, and he was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. Sorry, I just did that for a dramatic effect. As for Zillah, she also bore Tubal Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron, and the sister of Tubal Cain was Name. I'm terrible with these names. That's why we're not going to read chapter 5. We're going to skip over. But then Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, wives of Lamech. Listen to my speech. For I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain should be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Because I'm even bigger and badder and meaner than my
I kind of got a different meaning from
Do
that,
you?
but we'll talk about it when we get to it.
Let
Yeah,
me
yeah.
finish because we're right at the end. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him also was born, and he named his son Enosh. These men began to call on the name of the Lord. Now, I ended it there because I started this by talking about our connection to God.
Yes.
And this ends telling me that the connection was pretty broken at this point because I went down the rabbit hole of what does this mean? And there's like so many things that let me see if I wrote this down. There's some people, when it says people began to pray, some people say call on the Lord. And then some people have an interpretation that it says proclaim the Lord, like actually we are of the Lord. So this is where we start to have, as I said, I think there's a break of communication, but I think ultimately maybe you and I, whether it's proclaim the Lord, call out on the Lord, I think this is where we began to pray. This is where people began to say, God, I can't hear your voice. But I want to be good. I want to be righteous. Please help me in these things. I think this is where this began.
And I also feel like this may be the beginning of the separation of God's people. You know, like this is where God's people started getting their thing. Yeah.
Bring the Spider-Man suits out here and let's just point at each other. I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. Because listen, I did it. So I did a deep dive on what it means to follow Cain, to be a Canaanite, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where it all is. So when we get down the road, these are all the descendants of, and you're right, this sets up the people that are going to be of God and the people who are just going to be, and we talked about that. There's going to be two offspring. There's going to be people that want to be righteous, and there's going to be people who be like, nah, it ain't for me. So what's interesting, to walk with Cain means three things. It starts with unbelief. I mean, I think Cain's whole thing was, I didn't believe enough in my heart to give a good offering. I also don't believe enough in my heart that I don't want to give the correction, and I shouldn't have the correction. And the way to fix it is to take away the better offering, and now, look at my offering.
My offering has to be the best.
Has to be the better offering. So, anyways, I think that it's unbelief. It's first off, I just don't believe. I'm good enough. I can do it. I don't need all this.
It's almost a denial of the belief. You have to be able to deny what you see with your own eyes.
Yes.
To be a non-believer, I think.
The second is it's the jealousy towards those who God accepts. There's this natural inclination, just as Cain felt with Abel, and just as you see with, I think, as you were saying, we're starting to see these two sides of people who go, oh, those are the God people. And we don't believe in that.
And we'll see as we get closer to Noah that the ungodly side way over populates the God side to a point where the flood, where Noah, that whole thing has to happen. Yeah, because that's, and again, the third part of that is murder. It is, as you say, because when we get down to Lamech, he talks, it gets back to murder and vengeance and blood. And this is where I think we got a different understanding from what he's saying here. This to me 77 fold. This to me separates murder from self-defense. It kind of, because Lamech says, I have killed a man. And if you kill Cain, who murdered somebody, if God will avenge you 7 times, if you kill me for doing a righteous killing, I'll be avenged 77-fold. So to me, this was him saying. I thought it was arrogance, really. That's how I took it, though. But go ahead. To me, this is him saying, you can't come against me for killing this person, because he says, I have killed a man for wounding me. So this man was coming at him. So this was definitely a self-defense kind of killing. And then he says, if God would avenge Cain, if you kill Cain, God will avenge him 7 times. So if you come after me and kill me for doing something righteous, for defending myself, that will be avenged 77. And that's the way
Okay.
I took that.
No, and look,
And please, if I'm getting the wrong
yeah,
understanding,
no. Like I said,
please enlighten me.
I think ultimately, though, you know, and again, this is why we have these things. I want to go back and kind of redo this now. And again, is it super important? Does it break the fabric of our belief system? No, but I think this just generates the discussion. But I think we both agree Lamech was a key character in the narrative of the ungodly. And so,
Well,
or those that don't believe. I just, are you saying good came from Lamech? I mean, that's what I'm trying to, because I feel like that's what you're leaning me towards.
well, I'm saying I don't think that the killing that he's talking about was a bad killing.
Right.
And because I think it would lead more into how, you know, the one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill, which is actually thou shalt not murder. And I think this was a deviation between murder and killing, because Lamech had reason to defend himself. This guy was wounding him. And I think he's just trying to say you can't come and justify killing me for killing the guy that was trying to kill me. I want to say that's where I want to say that's what the meaning was for that.
So
now I'm not saying that Lamech was
wait.
pure.
No, I love it because I'm just because to grasp this. So you're saying this is where we started to become more. It's okay to justify murder. Is that what you're kind of saying?
No,
like
you
the
can't
spirit
justify murder is
as far as
premeditated. Yeah.
As self-defense.
If you kill someone trying to protect yourself or your family, that to me is completely different.
Right.
And God sends the Israelites into places and says, wipe these people out because they're not godly. This land is yours. And these people because if they had been allowed to live, they would have corrupted Israel. You see what I'm saying? So there is, I think there's righteousness in some of it, you know, because I'm just, that's the way I understood this anyway. And like I said, if there's somebody that can give me a deeper understanding, I'm all open.
Okay,
for all that.
I'm with you. Listen, I think it's great.
And I'm not trying to say Lamech is a great guy.
Right.
You know, I'm just saying that I think he was using Cain's situation as saying, look, if God will avenge Cain's murder after what he did, knowing that it was wrong, knowing that he murdered his brother,
right.
If you kill Cain, God will avenge that 7 times.
But see, the difference is this, and this is why I thought it was arrogant. Because when Cain did the murder and he was worried about people killing him, it was God who said, if someone does this.
Yeah.
God didn't say that about Lamech. Lamech said it about himself.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point. And I'm not saying it wasn't an arrogant thing, but I still feel like he might have been just trying to say that this was a justified, me killing this guy was justified.
I think,
is what I think he was trying to say. Maybe in a very arrogant way.
Right. That's kind of the way I took it. It was like, hey, I'm justified in this murder, and I'm going to be more arrogant about it and say, if you try to get me, well, then it's 77-fold even worse than I'm my is it descendant? That I always get that backwards. Is he the descendant or am I the descendant?
Yeah.
So, anyways. I am not a smart man.
His ancestor.
His ancestor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. The truth is, like I said, I just took it as, and again, I just went back to God was the one who said 7-fold. God didn't say anything about 77. That was all Lamech talking about himself. And you guess what? You don't have God. You're not God.
Yeah, and it's obvious that Lamech didn't mind stepping outside of God's plan anyway.
No,
he had already got him a couple
plan.
of wives, and he was like, yeah, so, you know, and he may have been one of those self-righteous people who said, I know exactly what God means, so I'll just throw this out there.
Wow, I don't know. I think maybe this has been, I think Lamech is the birthplace of self-righteousness.
It may be. That could be.
Maybe this is where we as humans were like, you know what? 1 wife? No. 2 wives. Murder? Yeah, I'm justified.
Yeah, I can do that because
7-fold, heck, 77-fold. I'm going to read more about this.
There may be a good lesson in there about self-righteousness.
Breakfast is going to be fun next week. But all right, so I want to make sure
I want to touch on one more thing about this chapter at the end where Adam knew Eve again, and she was given another son, Seth. So their firstborn has been murdered. Mm-hmm. Second one cursed and sent away as a vagabond. And then they have Seth. And just so we can,
Which we both agreed there's probably more kids.
Oh, yeah,
Seth
yeah.
was just important to the
Right, because
narrative, and his son was important to the narrative because of the people started. That was a
exactly.
mark in
and
the
because
moment in
this
history.
this is the lineage from, not all of it, but a little bit of it. The son of Enosh, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. That is the lineage written about in Luke when they're talking about
right.
Jesus Christ coming from the line of Seth, from Adam, from God. So that's why it's
Yes.
important.
And that's why we're not reading the next chapter to you, because you heard me butcher
Yeah.
some names earlier. But one, we've said this before. The whole book of Genesis gets described as this next chapter. And we'll say this again. The reason why, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a perfect segue into telling you the reason why that's in there. And the reason why I had to go through that uncomfortable lineage of Cain is because, let's go back. Javin, I love this. This historical document
Yes.
that we have, the reason why we call it that is because there are historical, basically, records of lineage.
You can
that-
go from
Right.
the earliest record you have of somebody and start backtracking, and as soon as you hit one of these names, you can trace the history of the world all the way
All the way
back to the beginning.
You can date.
You
You
can do that,
You
yeah.
can literally, if you want to spend the time,
Yeah.
you will
And I'll
find
tell
yourself
you,
all the
they've
way back
already
to
done
Adam.
it. It's out there. You can go look it up, and
Thank you, yes.
it is out there.
Probably for $39.95, you can sign up for how am I part of the
Yeah.
grand lineage?
Yeah, the history of the world, or whatever they call it.
Right, but I'd be careful. Didn't one of those websites just disappear or get taken over? Ancestry.com. or one
AI,
of those?
bud.
So
No,
yeah.
I think it was 23andMe just got
23andMe,
bought.
no, it
yeah.
was, oh yeah. It wasn't the ancestry. It was the, hey, you got all our
So
our
all that
chromosomes.
DNA I sent them is just out there willy-nilly now. I'll be cloned in the next week. They're going to realize how bad an idea that was.
Oh man, yeah. Your DNA is gonna mix with all the other people's DNA, and they're gonna be like, "How did you get in here?" I'll go back to, when they're talking about this, we called out to the Lord, or that in Enosh's generation, and as I said, I don't want to. We're not going to spend time on chapter 5. When we come back, it'll be chapter 6.
Yeah.
And then we'll start talking about Noah, because what's going to happen now is there's a lineage down to Noah.
Yeah.
And at this point, and then we'll pick up from here, God's had just about enough of us. I mean, he's done with it. And that Cain lineage down to Lamech just continues to get worse.
Yes.
I think more factors were put into it. We'll talk maybe a little bit about, there's not a history of it, but we do know there's later references that there were some supernatural beings that created some.
We definitely have to touch on that because it is in there.
We have to, and so, but I wanted to go back
Let's
to this.
just say the angels saw the women on the planet, and
And they were like, "Hey, these
they
women,
like, these women ain't bad.
not bad.
Yeah.
These women, they're okay." So
And I'm going to try to get a little bit of an idea about how much time between Adam and Noah, so we can kind of get an idea about how much time and how you can see that a population would have grown to a decent size, before the whole thing happened. Because I think it's relevant how society can fall apart in like a relatively short amount of time.
And I'm going to go back and read some of my. I think you have too read all the non-canonical books.
I have not. Now I want to get them because
Oh, yeah,
I have not.
I'm going to read some of that because some
What's
of that.
the Apocrypha? Is that one of
Yeah.
the? Yeah, I want to get that and read it. Yeah.
And there's, like I said, so if you, I'm gonna read a little bit on that, and so to sort of also talk about this time, because again, we're not gonna read all the lineage, but obviously a lot happened in the
Yes.
world between there and then. But when we come back, we will do that. But before we go, I want to go back to this beginning where we talked about when we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, we lost connection to God, and we're at the end of chapter 4, and now we have humanity breaking off into two different directions. One is all about self and self-indulgence and murder and mayhem and chaos and
Multiple wives.
multiple
Yeah.
wives, and I mean it's just. And the other is to a point where they start to call out to the Lord, and that's where, as I said, that communication it was so big because, I mean, we needed more. I mean,
We
I
did.
think that was when we realized as these instructions had gone down, and obviously you heard these things where he was talking to Cain and Abel. I think it just gradually, as generation would go, maybe it's you only hear them when you're spoken to, or maybe, as I said, we've got to remember too, we opened the gate to a supernatural world. We were probably getting voices and
Yeah.
all. I just
I find it hard to believe that
Yeah.
any of us, in a moment where we were doing something, didn't have that little notion in our head, like, this probably ain't the best thing I could be doing. But we always, or at times, were apt to give in
Yeah.
to ourselves because of the
course.
joy or pleasure or excitement that we get out of whatever it is that we're wanting to do.
Yeah,
Knowing in
oh
the
my
back of our
gosh.
head, there's always that little, or I can speak for myself personally. I've always known, or I can always look back and go like, yeah, this went wrong because I did that. I made a decision that led to that result.
Yes. I was trying to go back to this one thing before we go. Let's see. It was where, why are you so angry and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door, and his desire is for you, but you should rule over it.
Exactly.
That is the eternal supernatural battle we all fight
Yep.
every day. You're going to get the call and the pull to push away. God's instruction right here was you need, and this is also, by the way, can we do these Jesus references?
Yeah.
This is a little Holy Spirit right here. Cain was getting a Holy
Yeah,
Spirit,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, I'm trying to step in and tell
Yeah.
you, you're going to feel this way. But I'm telling you, if you do this, you're going to be accepted. Everything's going to be good. You got to, this is the part too. Sin desires. It wants you to come in
Yep.
and do the bad thing. It wants to pull you away from God.
And there's several verses that talk about how dark a human's heart is and how we are pulled
Yes.
toward that. But it is also about being in control of yourself, right? About ruling over. You are in
Yes.
charge of you.
You are in charge of you.
The Satan, the world, nothing makes you do anything. You have to be the ruler of your temple.
Yes. So,
you have to.
yeah, if you're one of these people, and this is just my call out to you, when you say, "Nah, that's just me, and that's how I'm gonna be," well, if how you're gonna be is sinful,
Then you are you're letting
guess
Satan
what?
rule
That's
over you.
not you being you. That's
Yeah.
sin ruling you.
Exactly.
That's and you've let it win.
Yep.
You've let it win. That's the voice of sin saying, "Ha ha ha."
And Satan couldn't be happier.
Right. So I know we got to get out of here because we're out of time. But thank you guys. Remember, it's Apple Music. It's not Apple Music. It's Apple Podcasts. It is Spotify. You can get us on. You can get us on iHeart and did I say
Audible?
iHeart? Apple. No, Amazon.
Audible.
Amazon Music.
Audible.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, Snapchat. We're not on.
Yeah,
those.
we're not on that.
Let's do a quick prayer. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for getting us through another great podcast. We ask for forgiveness. We want to pray for the world right now, and we want people to accept eternal intelligence because that is greater than the artificial intelligence that the world is trying to sell. But we thank you for all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next week, episode 38.
38, Mark.
Wow. That's
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6, yes.
Do your own reading on that lineage.
Yeah, lineage thing is on you. But we'll see you next week.